According to the Church Times of the 19th of October 2017, the average worshiping community of a Church of England, which includes all those who are part of a service, either on a Sunday or during the week, whether they attend every week or just once a month, is now estimated to stand at only 1.1 million people. That's just 2% of the country's population. The Church of England has lost around 2/3 of its members in the last 30 years. William Nye, Secretary General of the Archbishops' Council, commented that these figures are a sobering reminder of our long-term challenge. But this decline, alongside our inability to hold on to even those who at first enthusiastically embrace whatever form of church they choose to join, is, as we all know, not simply a C of E issue. You can soak it in bright lights and well-rehearsed bands with smooth-talking preachers, or drape it in mystery and vestments, incense and smoke. But denials and cover-ups aside, none of it is working. The way I see it, the underlying issue, which is the erosion of confidence in the authority of the Bible that we're witnessing across our globalist society, just isn't being addressed. The problem isn't that people haven't read the Bible or haven't heard it. Rather, it's that they have read enough of it to be sure that they don't want to read anymore. And equally, it's clear that large sections of the church have also misunderstood and misinterpreted the Bible as well. Though we know the enormous good that the church does, we keep on bumping into the fact that through the centuries, the poor interpretation of the Bible has been used to justify some of the most inhumane, brutal and oppressive episodes in human history. But what's harder to face up to is that still today it's regularly used to oppose the use of condoms, the teaching of evolutionary biology, people of other faiths, human rights, women's rights, gay rights, and this is to name just a few. Here's my point. People vote with their feet. Bad theology costs credibility. It costs trust and membership. It also costs, tragically, lives. Like I've explained, in my view, the answer to all this is really quite simple. You don't have to be a scholar to understand that the New Testament is clear. God is love. Put differently, any belief, attitude, policy or doctrine that damages or rejects or excludes or asks us to assassinate our God-given brains in order to believe just can't be from God. Last week, I set out my first principle for understanding the Bible. There'll be others in weeks to come. It was this: appearances can be deceptive. The Bible is a library, not a book. It is indeed what the word Bible literally means. It's a library filled with individual books that the church around the world has come over time to regard as sacred. Written across at least 1,500 years, it reflects to some extent the consciousness, the moral consciousness and the values of each author of each book. But principles are no good unless you can apply them. Only then can they help reverse the trend in our emptying churches. So let's look, just as an example, at how this principle impacts that terrible story I mentioned a few weeks ago from Numbers 15 in the Old Testament. It teaches this: while the Israelites were in the wilderness, a man was found gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found him brought him to Moses because it was not clear what should be done to him. Then the Lord said to Moses, the man must die. The whole assembly must stone him outside the camp. So the assembly took him outside the camp and they stoned him to death as the Lord commanded. Now, I've been part of churches all my life and I've never ever heard a single talk on that story, and we say we believe the whole Bible. And we tell young people and of course new Christians to read the whole Bible. through from the beginning because we say it will really help them. More than that, to children, young people and adults, we teach the stories of Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, David and Goliath, Elijah on Mount Carmel and many more, all as great examples of people of faith and prayer who we should inspire to emulate. But each of these stories ends with the most violent bloodshed, which we just ignore, pretend isn't there. So how do you teach Numbers 15 in a way that works for a kids group as well as for the most thoughtful adults? I don't think God ordered this poor man's death. I think that Moses, for all the great new insights he brought into God's character, misheard. He was a Bronze Age man reflecting Bronze Age morality. He was influenced by his own culture. And he did a terrible thing, which Jesus, of course, later overrode in his teaching. Watch the last Chalke Talk 8. So, when do we mishear God? When do we make God in our image instead of that shown to us through Jesus, the Word finally become flesh? What are the big issues in our society where we need to rethink in the light of the example of Jesus' life and teaching? You see, this relates to all of us, whatever our age.